Good afternoon and welcome back, members of Parliament. Earlier this morning, we started this meeting with 3 agenda points, during which all 3 agenda points, in each agenda points, members of Parliament posed questions. All 3 were then adjourned. We will now go over to agenda point 1 to allow the Minister the opportunity to answer the questions posed in agenda point 1. Minister, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good afternoon to the members of Parliament again after the break and the viewing public. I'll go straight into answering the questions, starting with MP Rolando Bryson. MP Bryson asked a question in regards to bring in line all medical professionals are exempted, or all medical professionals now exempted this amendment. Apothecars, physiotherapists, he drew 2 references to. As has already been stated, and also in the NADA report, the enumeration of the items in Article 8, Paragraph 5 of the TOT ordinance is exhaustive. This means that it was not the intention of the legislator to include all the medical professionals mentioned in Article 1, heading and after Part E of de tijdelijke Landsverorden beperking vestiging medische beroepsbeoefenaren in the exemption of Article 8, Paragraph 5 of the TOT ordinance. On the other hand, the first mentioned provision also includes medical professionals who are not listed in the latter provision. The business turnover of physiotherapists and pharmacists as such is exempt according to Article 8, Paragraphs 5 and 9 of the TOT ordinance. I'll now move on to the questions posed by MP Sarah Scott Williams. Starting with her first answer in regards to the budget 2022. As soon as the government receives the advice from the Council of Vice, the NADA report will be drafted to be assessed by the Department of Legal Affairs and Legislation, after which it can be presented to the Council of Ministers to approve the NADA report to be proceeded to Parliament via the Governor. This process will take at least 3 weeks after receiving the advice. MP asked a question in regards to the CFT and a reaction to the budget and paying out vacation allowance. As a result of the reaction from the CFT in the budget 2022, the budget amendment is drafted. This drafted budget amendment is at the Council of Advice, as I previously mentioned in my introduction, and will be proceeded as soon as possible to Parliament in a package that will be sent to Parliament. The response from the CFT on the budget amendment are included in this package, as well as our response indicating in detail how we handled the response of the CFT. The budget item of vacation allowance is also included in the budget amendment. As all the documentation will be sent to Parliament in short, I would like to refer to those documents for now. The following answer was in regards to a question from MP Sarah Scott Williams also. First of all, it should be mentioned that the tax policy in the context of the reform of the tax system is aimed, among other things, at broadening the tax basis by abolishing as many deductions, exemptions, and special regimes as possible. In short, measures aimed at substantial reduction of tax expenditure. This is also in accordance with the so-called country packages St. Martin. Considering this, in principle, it does not fit with the introduction of the new exemptions in the tax system of St. Martin. Secondly, the legislative history shows that Article 8, Paragraph 5 of the TOT ordinance includes an exemption for a number of exhaustively listed medical services, in addition to the then existing exemption for hospitals. The exemption in this provision covers services related to illness and human health. This refers to the typical tasks of hospitals, such as providing medical services and caring for inpatients. The following question statement was regards to change the tax system. There's a draft needed to be approved by COM. Can Minister provide information on the issue, and where is it now? In regards to the comment from MP Sarah Scott Williams, we, as a ministry, we don't really call it tax reform anymore. We call it tax improvements, because it's an improvement to our existing system and not a total reform. So that's one of the discussions we've had within the ministry and in the working group. And as per Parliament's request at that time, or not request, in the discussion with Parliament at the time, we had initially brought a list of different tax options and so forth, and Parliament had requested at that point in time to have a more condensed proposal, basically a sort of a position of the COM, and that's the steps that we have taken to come down to a position of the Council of Ministers, basically, on these are the taxes that we want to go further into. In addition to that, we've also looked at, so we have the position of the Council of the Government, and then we have also looked at taxes that we think should at least be looked into. So outside of the position paper, a couple of other taxes that have been discussed a lot in the last decade, that these are some other taxes that we would also like to look into and also to bring to Parliament to have a discussion on. In addition to that, the position paper, a list of these items on that document, we've also started discussions with the stakeholders. We've had meetings with on a number of the taxes with the Bankers Association, the notaries, the Insurance Association, different departments within government, so TIAT, Tax Office, AVZET, the hotels, yes, SHDA. They were also part of different meetings. So we had a whole week of stakeholder sessions, and also the tax committee also, the Chamber of Commerce. I think we've covered a huge portion of stakeholders that we've had discussions with on the different taxes. But even more importantly, we've gotten feedback, right? So, look, these are the taxes that we're looking at, and we were able to get feedback from the stakeholders. Say, look, we like that idea, but in reality, this is how this works. This is how we work with this tax in reality, and we get the practical terms and feedback of some of the taxes we had on the list. This process is still continuing. So we have about, I believe, 2 more stakeholders on the list that we wanted to discuss with, and then we would then refine, take their feedback into consideration, go back to the group, and add where necessary the feedback, and with that final proposal, we then plan to come to Parliament to have a discussion. There's also a discussion on do we start, because typically when we come to Parliament, you actually come to Parliament with the laws, right? So these are the draft proposals. So that's another discussion that we are also having on, okay, do we come with another discussion again in Parliament on the laws, or do we start to draft certain laws already and bring this to Parliament so we have an actual discussion on the draft laws? Sorry. Yes, the laptop had refreshed on me. So, yes. So in regards to that proposal, it is now still with the working group. The discussions between this St. Martin group and the Dutch working group, which consists of also tax lawyers and so forth, we are busy now finalizing that document. The document and the next steps to go forward.
Madam Chair Lady, a quick question.
Yes, MP
The
Vasco.
Minister referred to a document that is now with the work group, and at what document was the Minister?
Minister?
So what document is with the work group to be finalized? Or
The position, basically sort of a position paper.
position paper on the tax improvements?
Yes.
Thank you,
Yes.
Madam Chair Lady.
Minister?
That was in reference to the question MP Bascott and the change in the tax system and legislation and so forth. And now move on to the question posed by MP Lumina Duncan. MP Duncan asked if it was possible to be able to provide a number of psychologists that have private practice and how this would affect them. The information on psychologists is requested from the Ministry of Public Health, Social Development and Labor, because we don't have that at hand, so that request will be sent in. And now we move on to there was a follow-up question for MP Sarah Scott Williams in regards to the retroactive effect. My staff and I did not notice or intended any insinuation as observed by the MP. If any insinuation is perceived, I would like to say that this is and was not my intention. In addition, just for the sake of clarity, as mentioned in the presentation, the proposed exemption will not have a retroactive effect. And I'll move on to the questions posed by MP Bryson. His first question was in regard to the memorandum of explanation and budgetary effect in the paragraph. To answer your question, MP Bryson, the Ministry is currently engaged in a lengthy exercise to modernize the tax office, which will give the Ministry the much needed data in a timely manner to help in decision making of several legislative matters as it pertains to the taxes. Currently, I will have to inquire with the tax office to manually calculate the budgetary effects. So I would like the MP could please allow me some time to provide this information to you. And the follow-up question for MP Bryson was in regards to the realistic amount in the savings for psychologists. Here also, MP Bryson asks if you could allow us to provide some time to be able to collect this data.
Yes, MP Bryson.
Just if to reply to comment on that, if it can be provided in time for the OVA.
Yes,
We'll try our
Minister?
best, MP.
Yes.
I believe that was all the questions posed for the first agenda point, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Minister. Is there any other member of Parliament that wish to have the floor for clarifications? I see MP Westcott. Yes.
Yeah, thank you once again, Madam Chair Lady. Madam Chair Lady, in connection with the answers provided by the Minister, could I learn from the Minister when the draft amended 2022 budget was sent to the Council of Advice? If I can receive that information. And the Minister, through you, Madam Chair Lady, alluded to the discussion that is taking place, where it regards the improvements to the tax system, whether Parliament's involvement should be before legislation is drafted for these improvements. I want to encourage the Minister to initiate that discussion with Parliament before the legislation is sent. I think a matter like tax, whether it's called tax reform or tax improvements, but I think that discussion should be held before legislation is drafted to do whatever improvements, to do whatever reform. So if the Minister was still sort of toying with the idea when to come to Parliament, the Minister has several proposals from Parliament. Questions, and these things need to be addressed. These matters pertaining to the tax improvements, now we're going to call them, but these things need to be addressed. I can think of letters from several members of Parliament, including myself, regarding this matter. So again, if the Minister is still wondering about when to involve Parliament in the discussion, we need to have that discussion before we receive draft legislation, in my opinion. So, Madam Chair Lady, in terms of clarifications, those are the only two comments / one question, one comment that I wanted to make. Thank you, Madam Chair Lady.
Thank you, MP Westcott Williams. Is there any other member of Parliament that wishes to have the floor? I see none. Minister?
Yes,
I'll turn the floor over to you.
Madam Chair, in regards to the tax legislation, even if we look at any legislation the Parliament has discussed over the last 2, 3 years, 5 years, at least since I've been here, even more recently, most of the time the ministers come with the proposal. So it's not that, and I've also heard from Parliament in the past that, that's just an idea, come with something more tangible, and then we could discuss it deeper on that, because it's just an idea that you want to have. So that's where the discussion started from, Madam Chair, because of the fact that Parliament discusses actual laws, right, and not just ideas. So that's why we had that discussion. And again, when I look back for the last, at least even with this parliament, ministers haven't brought ideas to the parliament to discuss. They've brought actual draft legislations to parliament to discuss and have them amended or not and so forth. So that's why the discussion started. And also in regards to letters being sent, Madam Chair, I did inquire already once, and I was also updated on the fact that I believe, at least from the Ministry of Finance, we were pretty up to date with any meeting requests from Parliament, so we didn't have delays with meeting requests and so forth. And letters that, unanswered letters, Madam Chair, I would also like, if possible, to have an update on that from Parliament as soon as possible, so that we could provide any outstanding answers that the MP might be referring to, because we also try our best to be up to date with answering questions also, so that the discussion about missing answers before the tax document and so forth, I believe that we should have these answers answered on time, and I look forward to an update so we're able to answer that. Yeah.
Thank you, Minister, for your response. MP, is that, MP Westcott Williams, is that clear?
For now, thank you, Madam Chair Lady.
Then with that, members of Parliament, if there's no more comments or questions on agenda point 1, which is about the draft national ordinance amending the national ordinance taxing business turnover in connection with the introduction of exemption of psychologists, then members of Parliament, we have come then to a report will be sent to government on the information that was posed and questions that was given and answered here. And then we will now close agenda point 1. And then we move over to agenda point. Is that on agenda point 1, Minister?
Yes, because
okay, I'll allow you to respond. I'll turn the floor over to you on agenda point 2, but you can still respond to the Minister, MP, if anything.
Yes, MP also asked a question in regards to the budget when it was sent, and I believe it was sent about 3 weeks ago. That's it.
So now, if there's any answers or response, that's it?
Yeah, that's it.
On this topic? Oh, that was clear. Okay, so members of Parliament, no clarifications here, and if that's the case, then again, this information will be sent to government in the report, and I will now close agenda point 2.
One.
I already closed one.
Oh, no, but that, my answer was a reference to the question.
Well, I already closed one before you answered that question. I had already closed one, so for the record, I guess we can still put that in. And then I will then close agenda point 2, like I just mentioned before, and move on to agenda point 3. And I see MP Bryson would like to have the floor.
Madam Chair, I was actually thinking about this. I don't know how the other members of Parliament feel, especially considering that we technically just closed agenda point 2. Would it suffice, being that we're in Central Committee, if we get the answers within the report before the OVA, rather than having it read to us? I don't know if other members of Parliament would agree with that.
Members of Parliament?
So the answers are just form a part of the report. So my
because
proposal
he's
is
asking
that indeed you close agenda point 2, possibly up agenda point 3, and the answers that the minister would be providing, that they're simply provided as part of the report
in writing.
Yes.
Correct. Not a
So
problem.
that he doesn't have to verbalize them.
Not a problem,
the
Minister.
following answers, not the answers already provided.
I will propose it for 3 as well.
Okay, so everything will be sent in writing, either way in a report, and we will receive all the questions and answers and remarks in the report either way. Clear? Yes? Good. So now let's proceed with agenda point 3, Minister, the answers in agenda point 3. You have the floor.
Okay, just to confirm, are we still, am I still providing the answers and verbally, or? No.
So then actually, indeed, then let me make the proposal twice, because indeed it's 2 different agenda points. Also for this agenda point, Madam Chair, I would like to propose if the minister provides those answers in writing as well.
Members of Parliament that asked the questions in agenda point 3, are you okay with that proposal? Yes? Okay. With that then, we will then close agenda point 3, and this meeting will then also be closed. Before I do that, thank you, Minister, for your time with us here today, and thank you for your support staff. With this, meeting is now closed. The report will be sent to to government, and then we will receive it at a later date. Meeting is now closed.